Ever stop to think about one of the cruelest, yet most fascinating paradoxes in human relationships? It happens every day, under the radar, and it causes a ton of confusion. It goes something like this. The person who craves intimacy the most, who longs for connection and security, often acts in a way that ends up suffocating and pushing away the very person they care about. Every text sent seeking reassurance, every gesture to close the gap ironically seems to create an even bigger chasm. On the flip side, you've got the person who values their independence, their space, and their freedom above all else. To protect themselves and avoid feeling crowded, they build walls. But in doing so, they often end up feeling deeply isolated, looking at their freedom from inside a lonely fortress. It's a weird dance, isn't it? One wants to get closer, the other needs to pull away. The more one pursues, the more the other retreats. It's a perfectly misaligned pattern of movement, where both sides, seeking essentially good things, love and security, end up creating the exact opposite: anxiety and loneliness. Why does this happen? Why are we wired with these circuits that seem so contradictory? It's not a character flaw of yours or of the other person. It's a pattern deeply rooted in our biology and our personal history. A pattern with a name, an origin, and, thankfully, a path towards harmony. To understand this dance, we first need to meet the dancers. Psychology has given them clinical names, but let's call them by their deepest motivations. On one side, we have the restless heart. On the other, the free spirit. The restless heart lives with an emotional radar always on. They're masters at detecting slight changes in tone, longer pauses in a text response, any sign that the connection might be at risk. For them, connection is like oxygen. When it feels threatened, their whole system goes into alert mode. The main question haunting them is, are you still there? Are we good? To feel secure, they need closeness, reassurance. To feel like the relationship is on solid ground. Their biggest fear is abandonment. The free spirit, on the other hand, operates from an equally powerful need: autonomy. They feel most alive when they have room to breathe, to have their own thoughts, their own interests. Intimacy is welcome, but when it starts to feel like an invasion, when the questions become too frequent and the demand for attention grows, their alarm system goes off. The question guiding them is, am I still myself within this relationship? To feel safe, they need to know they won't be swallowed up, that their identity won't be dissolved into the other person. Their biggest fear is the loss of self. And here's the stage for our drama. The restless heart, fearing abandonment, reaches out to seek security. The free spirit, fearing being engulfed, pulls away to seek security. One's act of seeking security is exactly what triggers the other's alarm of insecurity. They're not enemies, they're just two emotional survival strategies on a collision course. But where do these strategies come from? Why do we choose one of these roles so often? These two ways of acting in the world, the restless heart and the free spirit, don't just pop up out of nowhere in adulthood. They're not personality traits we're born with. They're actually survival strategies we learned in our earliest childhood. The answer to this puzzle lies in one of the most important theories in 20th century psychology: attachment theory. Developed by British psychoanalyst John Bowlby, the theory started from a simple but revolutionary observation. For a human baby, connection with a primary caregiver isn't just a comfort, it's a matter of survival. We're biologically programmed to create a strong bond to ensure protection and nourishment. And here's where things get fascinating. The quality of this first and fundamental bond creates in our brains a kind of map, or internal working model. This map teaches us what to expect from others and how to behave to have our needs met for the rest of our lives. It's the original software running beneath all our future relationships. So, how are our two dancers born? The restless heart, which in psychology is called anxious attachment, usually forms when the primary caregiver was inconsistent. Sometimes present and caring, other times absent or distracted. The baby learns a crucial lesson. To ensure my needs are met, I need to make noise. I need to protest, constantly monitor my caregiver, and amplify my emotions. It's a brilliant strategy for ensuring connection in an unpredictable environment. The free spirit, or avoidant attachment, learns a different lesson. It usually forms when the caregiver was consistently distant, cold, or rejected the child's attempts to connect. The baby learns something equally logical. Expressing my needs for affection doesn't work, or even causes more pain. It's safer and more effective not to need anyone. They become self-sufficient, suppress their emotions, and learn to self-soothe. Another brilliant strategy for surviving in an emotionally arid environment. So, what we call neediness or coldness in adulthood aren't flaws. They're echoes of survival strategies that were incredibly smart and effective in childhood, but that now, in new contexts, create the painful dance we know. Okay, at this point you might be thinking, I get it. My attachment strategy was shaped in childhood, but does that mean I'm stuck? That this original map will dictate all my relationships forever? And the good news, and it's wonderful news, is no. Neuroscience shows us that our brains are plastic, meaning they can change, rewire themselves, and learn new ways of functioning throughout our entire lives. The map can be redrawn. This leads us to a third dancer, one who doesn't live in the panic of the restless heart or in the fortress of the free spirit. It's what psychology calls secure attachment. A person with a secure attachment operates from a fundamental belief. I can count on others in times of need, and I can also count on myself. They don't panic with distance, nor do they feel suffocated with closeness. They manage to balance the two needs that seemed at war: the need for connection and the need for autonomy. So, the solution to our painful dance isn't that one side wins over the other. It's not that the restless heart needs to become a free spirit or vice versa. The solution is integration. It's a truce where each side learns the wisdom of the other. For the restless heart, the cure lies in developing a little of the free spirit's self-reliance, learning that they can survive a few moments of silence, that they have the strength to calm themselves, and that their security doesn't entirely depend on the immediate response of the other person. For the free spirit, the cure lies in developing a little of the restless heart's courage, learning that vulnerability isn't weakness, that asking for help doesn't mean losing oneself, and that allowing oneself to depend on someone can be a source of strength, not annihilation. True freedom isn't never needing anyone. It's knowing you can connect deeply without losing who you are. The dance stops being an automatic reaction and becomes a conscious choice. You start to recognize your pattern emerging, and instead of being carried away by it, you can stop and choose a new step. Understanding all of this is liberating, but the big question is, how do we start redrawing this map in practice? Changing such deep-seated patterns is a journey. It doesn't happen overnight. But every journey starts with a single step. And the step I want to suggest to you today is a small practice we can call the pause and the question. It works like this. The first job is to become a good observer of yourself. Try to identify the exact moment when your pattern is activated. That moment when you feel the wave of anxiety and the impulse to seek reassurance, if you're a restless heart, or the moment when you feel short of breath and the impulse to close off and create distance, if you're a free spirit. At that exact moment, before acting on autopilot, your only task is pause. Just that. Take a deep breath once. Create a small space of 2 seconds between the trigger and your usual reaction. That small space is where your freedom of choice begins to be born. And in that space, you're going to ask yourself a question depending on your pattern. If you tend towards the restless heart and your anxiety spikes, the question is, what can I do for myself now, in the next 5 minutes, to feel a little safer, without depending on an action from the other person. Maybe it's listening to a song that calms you down. Maybe it's writing down what you're feeling. Maybe it's simply going out for a walk. The goal is to practice emotional self-sufficiency. If you tend towards the free spirit and your impulse is to pull away, the question is, what's the minimum, simplest, and safest way to communicate my need instead of just withdrawing in silence? It can be something as simple as saying, "I'm processing this, I need a moment, and then we can talk." The goal is to practice controlled vulnerability. Don't underestimate the power of this small practice. Each time you pause and choose a new action, however small, you're weakening the old neural pathway and starting to pave the middle path, the path of secure attachment. It's a workout, not a test, and every attempt is a win. The journey to build a more secure attachment is a process of continuous self-knowledge. It's learning to be an archaeologist of your own emotions. And if you want to continue this excavation with a more detailed guide, I have a recommendation. The book is called Attached, written by psychiatrist and neuroscientist Amir Levine and Rachel Heller. If this video was the why, this book is the how. It's a practical and fascinating manual that helps you identify your attachment style, the style of the people around you, and offers clear strategies to navigate relationships more consciously and healthily. It's a transformative read. And because the biggest transformation happens in community, I'd love for this conversation to continue with you. The question I leave for our reflection in the comments is, thinking about your relationship dance, which of the two sides do you recognize more in yourself? The restless heart or the free spirit? And what's the new step, however small, that you'd like to start practicing? Reading and learning from your experiences is what gives meaning to this channel. If you value these investigations into the human mind and want them to continue, please consider subscribing to the channel if you're not already subscribed. And if you want to go a step further and directly support the production of more videos like this, think about becoming a member. Before finishing, our essential reminder: this is a conversation to expand awareness. It's not therapy. If the patterns we discussed here cause significant pain and suffering in your life, please carefully consider seeking help from a qualified psychologist or therapist. That's the biggest and bravest step of all. Thank you for your company in this investigation. The dance of relationships only stops being painful when we finally understand the music. And the music, in the end, was always inside us.